You're listening to the Derby Junkie podcast with the host Joel Vanson. This is your number one source for Derby news. Carnage on the track, motors overheating. The podcast is presented by Vansel Productions, always filming non-stop action. Vansel Photography, it's more than just a photo. Capital Industrial Derby Supplies, Derby Tees, and Buzzkill Rubber Company. And now, your host, Joel Vanson.
Good evening. Thank you for joining me on the Derby Junkie podcast presented by CIDS, Capital Industrial Derby Supplies. We have a good show for you tonight. We have Jason Jarboe joining us on the line momentarily. We'll be having him talking about his Derby career and what is in store for him for 2015. Before we get him on the line, I want to mention our voluntary sponsor, CIDS, Capital Industrial Derby Supplies. This business is owned by Nate Burgle and his brother. It's a family organization. They've been in the business for several years now. And if you need engine cradles, pulley protectors, all thread shocks, rib guards, and GoPro mounts, and etc., the list goes on and on. They make a lot more. But you can find these guys off WeCrash.proboards.com. Go down to the classifieds, and there should be a thread that says like business productions or business something. It mentioned all the businesses that are involved with Demolition Derby, and Nate's username is 67X, and you can drop him an email or a private message, or his number's on there. You can give him a call if you would like to purchase anything from him. He does an excellent job on his work. I've ordered GoPro mounts myself. They do an excellent job on them. They're really easy to assemble onto a car. You get two plates, and the bottom plate, you put it inside the car. For instance, if you're putting it on the roof, you would put the bottom plate inside the car, and then the other top would be on top of the roof, and then you would just put 4 bolts up into up from the roof, and then you'd be ready to go for that. And then you would just put the GoPro down into the slot, and then the frame of the GoPro would lay on the slot, and then you would use zip ties to hold it into place. That's what I use, and that's what I believe Nate was using. He's got pictures of the mounting system and how he does it, and of course he's got other pictures about everything else that he does. But like I said, I just mentioned a few things that he does. He does a lot. Him and his brother do this. They've been doing it, like I said, they've been doing this for several years now. I recommend seeing Nate and his brother. See if they can hook you up with anything. If you need anything, check out their page on WeCrash. It should be like the first page on that thread, if not the second page. They're up in the front. I will probably be ordering myself some GoPro mounts here shortly, because I got some cameras that I need to have mounts for. So Nate, if you're listening, got some orders coming through me here shortly. So before Jason Jarboe joins us on the line shortly, I want to mention a few things, or one issue and then another important thing. The issue was last week we had some glitches in the podcast with Sean Notchell that I had on. The intro, I think it was during the intro, we had some glitches, and I apologize for that. They have been resolved, they've been fixed, and hopefully my podcast from now on, they will be better. Again, I do apologize. It was some kind of malfunction that I'm not sure what happened, but I caught it when I was listening to the podcast, and I'm not sure how it happened. So I do apologize, and we're hoping that doesn't happen again. And then the other note, it's an important note. If anybody knows John Bowen, he's from Frankfort, Indiana. A lot of people know him in central Indiana because John Bowen used to derby. He derbied for many, many years. But here, about 4 or 5 months ago, he was diagnosed with leukemia. And he's been on chemo since. And the chemo that he was on wasn't doing anything for him. And so now he's back in the hospital again. And they're trying to try something new on him and trying to get him better. That's all I know I can tell you. I'm not going to go in more detail because I don't feel the need that I need to. But why I'm saying this is, if you can, just say a prayer for him. I don't care when or where. Just say a prayer for him and his family. He needs it because I like to see John get through this. John's a good man. I know him. I don't know him well, but I've been around him. And to me, we're all family. And we help each other out. So, if you can, say a prayer for him. His wife, Lisa, is keeping up a Facebook page. It's called Fighting for John Bowen on Facebook. And every day she tries to give an update on how he's doing and seeing the process on his battling of this cancer. So, if you can, if you have Facebook, like the page and follow it so you can keep updated with John and his process. But anyways, with that said, Jason Jarboe is next.
You're listening to the Derby Junkie podcast. It's just not a newscast, it's a podcast.
Joining me on the Derby Tees hotline is Jason Jarboe from Greenwood, Indiana. Jason, thanks for joining me on the program.
Hey, I'm glad to have this opportunity. It's really cool what you're starting here, something for the Midwest, talking to some local Indiana guys as well. So I appreciate you doing this, Joel, and look forward to hearing more of these podcasts down the line.
Well, I appreciate it. Let's just get started on we talked several things about what we were going to talk about when I talked to you on the phone here a couple days ago. And I just got a list of questions that we're just going to go down the line and discuss. And I just want your opinion on them, and we'll go from there. And the first question is, when did you get started in derbying and why?
Yeah, that dates way back. Probably for me, the summer of 1987, I'm thinking. About 16 years old at that time. Probably had my license for about 6 months. And really what got me into it is my dad. My dad actually started derbying. I think his first run was back in 1976, which made me about 4 years old at the time. I think he derbied 63 Chevy Bel Air 4-door back then, and it was a 6-cylinder automatic, believe it or not. And since it was the 1976 year, I remember he had it in red, white, and blue with some stars painted on it to celebrate the bicentennial year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I still have pictures back to that time where I was helping paint it with my older brother, who's about 2.5 years older than me. So I think I remember my dad talking about he got second in heat. I think a Chrysler wagon got first. But, derbying's a lot different. That was more, heck, they still had windshields in at the time. Weren't even welding gears back then. Barely stripped. Probably similar to what the gut and go would be today. So I say, he kind of got me into it. I saw those pictures. I said, hey, I'd like to do it. So when I turned 16, I was able to do it, which kind of takes me back to my first derby car for me.
So what was your first car that you ran, and how many years did you run with your dad?
Well, my first derby car was actually a car that my dad and bought me for a driver. So, take me back when I was 16. It was actually a fresh 1972, actually it was a 73 4-door Caddy. I think we paid $175, and it was a nice all-power car, huge car, 472 cubic inch motor in it. But they were very, very strong running cars. It was all black. It was a great car just as a driver. Big for a kid back then, but for $175 at that time, it was a nice vehicle. and we actually ended up derbying it. The first derby I took it to was my hometown derby, so that would have been Johnson County, so Franklin, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, you had a lot of the old timers. So Rick and Randy Shipp were kind of the big regular winners there, and they were brothers. And at that time, you could run imperials, so you could run your full frame imperials back in Johnson County there in the 80s and 90s coming up. So you'd have your typical GM wagons, but they always brought a couple fresh imperials and pretty much dominated the field. And I remember going out and hitting them a couple times, and I think it was Rick Shipp that full tracked me in the passenger side of that four-door caddy. And at that time, we weren't running cages.
Mm-hmm.
So at least most of us weren't. But I remember losing about 30 inches of car from the passenger door. I got knocked in all the way to the center armrest.
Oh, wow.
Just in that hit with the Imperials. So it was kind of cool. That was my first car. There's been a lot of cars since then, that we could get into, but I've only ran one mini car ever. That was a Geo Storm in Martinsville at Morgan County Fair. That was in the early 90s. I think there was 48 cars all at once, and I placed fifth on my first mini car build, which was, that's enough for me. It's a bunch of bees running around, and there's some really well-built mini cars in today's day and age. But as for running with my dad, actually, we only ran together a couple times actually on the track, and that would have been in Johnson County, because when I got into it, he just would help me more than anything. We ran first together. I think it was 1991. I think I was about 18 or so. I had a 74 four-door Impala that I ran. I think I won my first heat at that time. I think I might have got sixth place or so in my hometown derby there, in a four-door post Impala. And then I started to get a little more serious about it and more competitive. So I started getting what I call the real deal cars. So I bought myself a spotless 72 Chevy wagon, and it was green interior, had about 72,000 actual miles. I bought it from a retired lady on the west side of Indianapolis for $500. I clearly remember I was in college and kept bugging her about it, and told her, I'd be taking nice, good care of it. And I did, drove it for a little bit, and then started stripping it. And then I bought my dad a 1964 Imperial Coupe, just as clean. And we actually went down, I think it was August 1991, to the Morgan County Fair in Martinsville on Friday night. And back then there was 120 cars plus each night on a Friday and Saturday. Lots of Imperials, lots of wagons. I think there were 6 heats of Imperials wagon sedans that night of at least 20 cars. This is back in the good days. It's about 91, I think it was.
Wow.
And I got second in my heat. My dad had a little problem. He went through the consi because in his heat, he literally lost his battery. It broke free from the battery box and wound up in the back floor during his heat. Then he went out in the consi, and he was pissed off, to be honest with you. So he went out to the consi and just front to back, just clearing house. It was unbelievable. And then we went to the feature. Well, there was a group of guys. Everybody remembers the Waverly guys down there, and they'll know, anybody that knows. And they have lots of cars, but we beat up on each other all night, and none of us got in the top 10 that night, to be honest with you. They knew they had to deal with us, and we'd have to deal with them. But one reason we did halfway decent that night is how clean our cars were to start with. But, that was the biggest one that I can remember with my dad, but we didn't run a lot. There was a time at Johnson County and this time at Morgan County that I ran with my father. Other than that, he's been there to help me. So that's really what got me hooked, though, that derby when I ran Imperial and wagon with my dad. And then I took a few years off, Joel, and I think I took about 12 years off, finished college, got married, did the whole family thing, 3 children. Then I got back into derbying around, I think, the summer of 2004. And I've been pretty much at it now for 10 plus years. And I'm 43 now, so that's kind of where I'm at for how I got started and how much time I've spent with my dad running and where I'm at today. So
when you were telling me about the story about your first car that you ran that caddy, when you were telling me that hard hit that you got on the passenger side door, when you got hit, did you think, what am I doing out here? Should I even be derbying? I mean, did it freak you out, or did you actually think that, oh my gosh, this is awesome, I just want to continue to do this? Or, I mean, can you even go back to remember what was your first instant about that?
Yeah, so I'm a 16-year-old kid. That's a great question. 16-year-old kid, I can remember we even left the dash in. So, if you can imagine the back end of the full frame, 65 Imperial, basically going the full distance of the Johnson County track, hit me right in the square of the doors, and then bringing that in, cracking the dash. I remember plastic and dust everywhere just flying from that dash cracking. So it was, you don't experience that today because you take all that crap out.
Yeah.
But I clearly remember some plastic and everything just going all over because it got collapsed. And I was like, ooh, that was a good hit. I think I even, gave him a thumbs up for the hit, even though I was, clearly a rookie. Learned better to pick on Imperials in a 72, 73 caddy. But I think the biggest thing is I kind of was wedged and stuck. I was still running fine, but I couldn't get out of where I was. So the first thing I want to do is, that's great. You're get yours. But funny, later, several years following, I did get payback. So, it always comes around. But those guys are legends down there, and it was always fun to watch them derby and run their Imperials. So, but no, I didn't. I probably just, I got that first bit of adrenaline, but that was the hardest hit up to that point, obviously, for me to experience. But I came back for more on it.
So how many wins you got so far?
Yeah, so wins, I tell you what, that first win's the hardest win still for anybody that derbies. I remember my wife telling me, it's a waste of time. You're never going to win. Blah blah blah. It's too hard. You need friends. There's too much luck involved. The whole 9 yards. And I said, no, it's going to happen. So I've been back at it serious for a little over 10 years, maybe 12 years now. I have to count. But I think I'm at about over 10 wins for the past decade. My win to run ratio has been pretty strong. I've been very fortunate once I broke that first one to be able to do that. And then after I broke that first one, it's like I want to win my hometown derby. And after I won my hometown derby a couple times, let me spread out. Do state fair, do Morgan County. I started doing a lot of faucet shows, had some good success there. So I've had a lot of second place finishes. I remember a buddy of mine, Chris Chumley, a few years back in Morgan County, and it was down to first and second with me and him, and I had the better car. He was in a Ford. He was about ready to belly out, and it was absolutely monsooning rain, and I mean mud was absolutely everywhere. I had the roof of my car caved in just a hair. It was like a big funnel with the water just dropping directly in my lap. You couldn't even wear safety glasses because you couldn't see. But anyway, we wanted to get it over. We went nose to nose. I really lined up hard on him one time, but it kinked my left side frame rail by the steering really bad, and I actually lost steering. So I was just laughing at him. I'm spinning my steering wheel, and he taps me a couple times for the win, and he knew. But that was there's second place finishes like that we can all remember. I remember the first time I ran the state fair, I had the same thing. I think it was a Wagner and me. He was in an Impala and I was in a wagon, and I had lost my steering. Started riding a little bit too high, and it was really weird where it broke. I couldn't even explain how it possibly could break there, but it did. I was a sitting duck, so I had a couple seconds like that are frustrating, as many people have found out. But I'm very fortunate. People get their first win, get that monkey off their back, they'll be happy. So my first win was in a 73 Chevy wagon. It was way back in Putnamville, actually. John Porter was the promoter for that. I got to really help my buddy Jeff French. He lives in Kokomo now, but he used to live in Greenwood by me. I owe a lot to him. He really helped me get back into the sport. We ran a couple of 73 Chevy wagons together at our hometown derby in Johnson County. He had a nice shop, barely 5 minutes from my house. So I'd help him build, and he'd help me, and I'd go over there a lot. He'd let me use that until I could get my own set up. So for years, we did that together, and it was a great friendship, great time. And his dad as well, his father, Bill French, helped build me one of my first motors over there. So I think both of those guys. So then I started thinking about upgrading, but yeah, I've got wins, but I mean, you talk about some of these guys have been doing it for 30 years. I mean, they've got tons of wins. I'm very happy to get past that first one and to get what I did. Another great memory was with my brother a couple years ago in Noblesville, faucet show. I was in a 64 Imperial, and I think he was in a 66. And we got first, second. I let him run my other drivetrain, and we finished first, second. So that's the only time I finished first, second with my brother. I finished first, second with my cousin a few times, actually twice this year.
Mm-hmm.
At the state fair, you probably remember, and then at Frankfurt. So it's been kind of a family affair. We kind of went when I was back with Jeff French, and I think we had 8 or 9 cars one time laid out in his yard all ready to go, and the cool scene. We had them all painted black with Punisher skulls on them. We kind of called ourselves the Punisher team, and we were known like that for Johnson County for a while, and it was pretty cool. And you know, we'd rival with the regular guys there, with Mark Hommel and Jeff Lee and Tony Dunn and the Coopers and all those. It was a great group, and I'm sure it gave the crowd, you know, something that's rivalry to watch for many years. So.
Now, does your brother still derby? I haven't seen him. The last time I saw him was in 2012 at the Tippecanoe Spring Show when you guys came. It was you, your brother, and then Jeff. I haven't seen him run. So is he still running, or did he kind of give it up, or?
Yeah, he would love to not give it up. He's just the smart one, Joel, as it's sitting, you know, at 20-something degrees outside right now. And he actually packed up last year, about this time last year, and moved to St. Petersburg, Florida. So he's going to try to do something down there, but he sold out a lot of his stuff. Some of the stuff I took off of him, still housing for him. But right now he's on idle, so it's just my cousin Jason Jarboe, who also resides in Greenwood. He's still going at it pretty strong. Myself, and I derby a lot with my buddy Chris Chumley, number 21, right now. So yeah, he's on idle for a little bit, getting some work down there. His wife moved for her job, so he's enjoying a lot warmer weather than we are. But, you know, there's opportunity down there. Now, I'd say Florida is trying to catch up with the Midwest on derby.
Right.
He's searching for some cars for me all the time, so he laughs about that. But
it'd be interesting to see what the difference is between finding cars down there than it is here. Is it? I'm not sure if you've talked to him recently. I'm not sure if it's harder to get cars down there versus here.
Yeah, there's a few shows. He's going to try to get to some this spring and summer to check them out a little bit more. A lot of them are more of what the stock build you would see run here.
Okay.
The very stock build that you see run, you know, which is fine. The car-wise, it's a mix on the cars because, you know, they still have the salt water, right? So depending on where those cars have been sitting, some of them are in, you know, really good shape if you can find them, you know, stored for a while. But other ones, you're still going to experience, you know, some saltwater damage that's impact them. But price-wise, you know, there's not the ones he has seen are not as pricey as what you see going here. Obviously, just supply and demand. So if we can work a good deal shipping some of that up, you know, really Alabama, places like that too, might be a good opportunity for us down the road.
Right. You talked about your motor when you were younger, just building just a regular straight basic motor. Next question is, do you build your own motors, or have you ever built your own motor?
Yeah, that's a great question. So once I really started getting serious in the last 10 years, I started upgrading my equipment. It's one of the parts about being competitive, you know, in this sport. I mean, we crash had a lot to do with people finding parts and learning how to build. There's no doubt about it. So, motor-wise, well, I went with my buddy Chris Chumley. He knows a little bit about motors. We've got a guy not far from us that really knows a lot about motors. He did a lot of stock car motors, drag cars, big Chevy guy. So we could order a lot of parts for him. He knew a lot of combinations, so we actually built a higher horsepower motor with the help of my buddy Chris. We ended up calling it the copper top motors, and we're not in like some of these motor builders, but he's put a lot of those out, probably about 10 just recently that are out there. It was a good setup for us. We've gotten a lot of wins. I remember I had one that I had ran 6 times with 4 wins on it, so I mean, it had a nice record on it.
Yeah.
So I got up to Lafayette. If you can remember, I was in that last Imperial I ran. I dropped the front left wheel. That's the one Donnie won.
Is that where you blew your motor?
Yeah, that's where I blew up my motor, dragging that left front wheel around in that Imperial.
Okay.
So there's a couple Wagners that were out there,
Mm-hmm.
and Rick, I don't know, I think Rick might have been out there. Joe Williams was out there.
Yeah.
My cousin broke his drive shaft right off the bat. Obviously, we were highly outnumbered after that point, but I was trying to limp that thing around and make him work a little bit, but that heavy car, and I was really working that motor, and I had not done anything with the bottom end of it, but I ended up breaking a rod and cracking my cylinder 7 and 8 when I took it apart. So what's funny about that motor still limped its way into the garage, believe it or not. But it was trashed. So I went through it, built another copper top, and I actually upgraded the bottom end of it and ran that for a while, and then I've refreshed that. It's actually on an engine stand right now. I'm getting ready to tidy that up. But, on top of that, since I was running several cars at once, nice to have 2 drivetrains, although it's also a pain to have 2 drivetrains because you got double everything. It's more money. You got to upkeep it, the whole 9 yards. So I'm still running with a couple setups. So what I did about 5.5 years ago, I talked to Guard. So I talked to Jeremy, and at that time he had not built a lot of his Ice Cube motors, because he dealt with Grop for a while, and then he went on his own.
Right.
So I said, if I'm going to do it, let's give me the Ice Cube. And we kind of called it the Ice Cube Plus. But I bought that motor from him, and I've never had a problem ever with that motor. In fact, I just got it freshened up before the turn back the clock that I ran last May of last year. And I went up, and Jeremy and myself were taking it apart. And I'd ran this motor for 5 years. It's been hot probably 4 times, decently hot. The valley was spotless. The piston heads were still, fairly shiny. He couldn't believe it either, and he goes, obviously you take care of your stuff, and I do. But, Jeremy said, there really was nothing wrong with this motor. So we freshened up. I made a couple upgrades with it. And it's got a little more horsepower. It's got a little rougher idle on it, but it's done me well. Actually, I think I got a couple wins since the refresh in a second. So it's done well. It has, in all the three or four derbies that I have ran it, it's died twice. 2 times. First time was a hit with Braun and his wagon right at the end at the heat of the turn back the clock. And then it died 1 time, I think, at Martinsville. That's it. So, it's a great motor. I highly recommend his product. So then setups, rear ends, I ended up going to Roy Turner M9 40 spline. Actually, I just built another one for myself. Took the M9 housing, got that. I put a back brace on it myself and got the parts to put it in, because I can run my leaf spring setup, and then I can run a coil spring setup with that. So I'm kind of do this for a little bit longer, and I wanted to have a complete full setup rear end motor. So that's where I'm at right now. So I do have one very nice motor that we built with the help of my buddy, and then I run a Guard Ice Cube.
Okay. Well, I know when you've been at John Fawcett's shows, I've definitely Your motors have definitely sounded good, because I was always wondering what kind of motors you ran, because they were definitely to the point that they're almost like racing motors, because once you got on the gas, you really, I mean, it was unbelievable. I just can't even describe how it sounded. It just was amazing. They were just screaming down the track. So I was wondering if they were a guard motor or not, but now I know. So
the ones that you would have sold me there at Lafayette or Noblesville, that would have been that copper top motor that we built at that time. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And I had a lot of people ask about that, and that's probably why we dealt with a few people with them. But the guard motors, even when I've upgraded, it's still got plenty of horsepower. But it's one of the things you want Mr. Reliable, and it's not this horsepower game that I think Derby has become lately. I got to say, more horsepower is more heat. I don't care what you're doing to them, and you just got to watch it. I wouldn't really want any more horsepower than what I get out of that copper top. I would not. To me, I mean, it's plenty. If you got a good gear, you should be fine. But yeah, I appreciate the compliment. I mean, it's crazy. You hear your ears are ringing when you get out of some of the longer Derby heats and features, and it never sounds like it does for someone that's watching. You know what I mean? And a lot of times you never hear your motor because you're always in it, running it. So it's cool when I have somebody, like my dad or cousin or brother run my car so I can actually hear the motor.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're hearing it totally different when you're inside the car versus somebody that's sitting in the stands. So.
Right. Yeah, that brings me back to 2013 when I would tape the Indiana State Fair. He was telling me that. I think it might have been Rick Brown. He was doing some tweaks, I believe, to his motor. He commented, because he bought a DVD from me, and I think he worked on his motor before the State Fair show, and he was just impressed on how his motor sounded, because I caught that on video, and I always would keep an eye on him because I knew that guy was always going to go out there and try to junk somebody. I knew he would be on the gas all the time, and he complimented me for getting his shots in there, because he, like you said, he wasn't able to hear his motor because he was out there running. And so with my video of taping the show, he liked that. So I can see where you're coming from, because you can't hear it because you're in the car. You just hear a whole bunch of motors. So when you can actually have someone else run it, you can actually hear it. You see the process on what you've done to the motor to make it to the point that you like it. And of course, a lot of people just come to the derbies to see destruction, but also they don't mind listening to motors run, because they're not just a regular, they're not just a regular stock motor. They're actually a hype, guard motor or whatever, that they sound like a racing motor. And it's amazing on what they can do with motors now. I'm not an expert in motors, but they sound badass pretty much. So, definitely.
They do. Really, I call it souped up NASCAR anymore, to be honest with you. It's souped up NASCAR.
Yeah.
I mean, even as well, some of the motors I have, and then I see what some people are doing, and then hearing, I'm just shaking my head, not laughing. I'm like, it's cool. I love to see it wind up. You can watch a '70s Derby, and granted, you're going to see a lot of stock motors. You're not going to see all the headers. You're going to see some destruction. But when you can go to a Derby and see destruction and hear the rumble of a motor and feel that kind of vibrate through you from the stands, it adds a whole other effect. And I think that's one of the things of Derby today that I appreciate.
So let's go to the next topic. Do you prefer, since you're a kind of imperial person, do you prefer full frame or subframe imperials?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I guess I got to answer full frame. Bad thing about that is I've never ran a subframe. So if I talk to Larry Edison or Jeremy Hamilton, they're gonna be subframers, all along. And they've been subframers. Heck, I don't even know if they've ran a full framer. That's the same for me. I've only ran full framers, even when I was younger. That 64 my dad had, I ran that after he first ran it. So. I've been fortunate. We're on a lot of Chevy wagons and Imperials, and some people don't get to do that. But the subframe, I really came close. I just bought myself another full framer, but I'm talking with Larry and Jeremy. They're just like, no, it's fun to just go straight. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to deal with the ass end of them. Just once they're gone,
Right.
So it's hard for me to. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with my full framers, but I don't have a taste of the subframe action either. So, I guess I'm biased to full frame, but it's maybe not a fair judgment because I've never ran a sub, and they're probably saying the same thing. I like subs, but I've never ran full frame. I don't think they have, but I would stick with full framers just because I can keep the ass on them a lot longer. Fawcett's got some good rules now. We used to have rules that were separate for full frame Imperials, and even a little different for subframes versus somebody just building a Ford. But he's kind of come to realize that Fords can definitely compete. So to me, I'll be full framer. I just love the old iron stuff, Joel. To be honest with you, I've wanted some new style Fords, and you can build them much quicker. But every fair has plenty of Fords in it. It's just hard to see these older cars, and if I can get that back and build one, I have a lot of fun with the build. And if I didn't enjoy the build, I wouldn't do this because my hobby is not just about running. Winning is great. I've done that, so that fulfilled that within me. But I really like the build. Building something from the ground up. You're asking about motors. I know a little bit just to get into trouble about motors, but by no shape or form would I build one from the ground up without a lot of help from someone else, and obviously a good machine shop. But I can build a car from a bare frame up. Period. No problem. I enjoy it. So, but the new style Fords, they've allowed the great sport to continue, right? Because if we didn't have it, we wouldn't have a lot of these fairs. If you didn't have these Fords that somebody decided to run a Ford and somebody laughed at them for a few times till they whipped up on some people and they said, well, these cars stay pretty good together in the front,
Yep.
If I do this, the backs last a little longer. So it's allowed the sport to continue. But if I can find a pretty clean Imperial, I'll still run it while I'm still doing this.
What do you think about Imperial shows so far?
Well, first off, I've got to give 100% credit to the promoter, John Fawcett. He really stepped up to the plate in Central Indiana, bringing Imperials back and getting away from, two major sets of rules, depending on the car make. He started that way, but I applaud him. Actually, he's the main reason that I was able to run Imperials in the area, because I was at a show, I forget where it was. Heck, it may have been Frankfurt. I can't remember. He was talking about and passing out flyers, and he asked me, he goes, hey, if I bring Imperials back, would you be able to, would you run them? He had heard that I had a few. And I said, absolutely. So, I don't know, I fast forward about a year, and he says, hey, I'm bringing them back this year. Here's the deal, here's the rules. And I said, well, you said you'd do it, so I'm going to keep my word and step to the plate myself and build one, bring in your shows. So that's what kicked it off. So I'm all for Imperial shows. They haven't won every show of his by any means, but they've been very competitive in the shows, like they should be. But he can build a hell of a Ford with his rules, and in 2015 you can leaf spring a Ford. So any Fords you could build is going to compete. Period. As good as I can handle that Imperial, you got somebody that knows what they're doing driving in a Ford, they're going to get around better than I can. I don't care what motor I have. I'll get them by weight and just sheer, strength of metal. But the way you can build those Imperial or Fords with kickers now, with extra plate, you can compete. I wouldn't be scared of any Imperial, and I don't think most of the guys that are running this pro mod are at all. It's just your choice. I mean, if you want to go out and run old iron, go, buy yourself an Imperial. And people are like, well, I don't want to pay the money. Well, you're talking $800 to $1,200 probably between where you find them, but so it's a couple Fords. The way I look at it. But so I'm all for the Imperial shows. I hope they stick around. Actually, they're going to be expanding the Central Indiana area, and I don't know if you know this, but I might as well. I've talked with Craig Zupanzik. He's the promoter up Morgan County in Martinsville and in Brown County also. So he's actually bringing any year Imperials back in 2015 to his derbies. So the Central South area will have some more opportunity. And it's going to be a great set of rules as well. So you'll see more guys bringing out of the woodwork, and it gives another opportunity for us that like Imperials to be able to run them.
Cool. Do you think that, like you just said, with him having Imperials at his show, do you think that's gonna maybe increase people to come back into Derby, because they might just want to run Imperials? That's all they like to do is run Imperials. Do you think that might help increase Derby a little bit?
I know there's some stashes, Joel, of Imperials and wagons that people wouldn't believe right now. So, heck, some of these people, they're going to have to sell them at some time. They're not going to outlive their stash. So I do agree that in Central Indiana now, you're going to see some of these come out that people have held on to. The first Imperial I ran at a Fawcett show, I had purchased when I was 17 years old. Okay,
wow.
So I think I had it in storage for just over about 18 years in storage.
Was that the 64 Imperial?
Yeah, that was the 64 four-door that I first ran and won at I got 2 wins off of it at Fawcett shows that year. But so that was in storage forever. I know there's others in storage forever. Now, some people are going to say, does it scare me off? I don't think it'll scare off. I think what scares people off in the pro mod goal is the time. Mm-hmm. And let's not be. You've been around Derby. You get your brother, right?
Yep.
So you know how many hours he puts into the sports.
Mm-hmm.
So if a guy's putting 100, 120 hours in a car, which for some that might be even on the light end, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's a pro mod. I don't care what anybody's saying or how fast. I mean, when you're spending 20 hours just on a trunk, it takes a long time to grind and weld and clean up seams and knock things down. It takes time, especially when you're a one-man show most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what scares people off.
Right.
Let alone the gas, a couple spools of wire that you're going to put in the car, the cage, so you can add another $300 or $400 just to build a welded-up car. So that's going to scare people off. So those that enjoy the build, thank God you have promoters that still allow pro mod.
Right.
So now, people have these stock derbies, so they have a nice choice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to spend all the money and time, which I 100% get. There's days I get pissed off and don't want to do it. But I back away from the shop, take a deep breath, maybe even have a nice cold one or two,
mm-hmm.
and then I re-energize and go in there. But, there's going to be a day that I just say enough's enough.
Well, there's a lot of Derby drivers that I've talked to that have what you just said. They would either had a bad day in the shop, that nothing goes right. Even for my brother, I've had many talks with him. He just said, this is ridiculous. What I got to do to this car to fit the rules, it's ridiculous. And then he's to the point that sometimes he doesn't want to come underbuilt. And do you think that, like, when you're building, are you scared of saying, I don't want to come underbuilt? I mean, so I'm going to go add a little bit more things to the car so I'm overbuilt. So if I get inspected, maybe I just have to cut a few things versus I'm underbuilt. And then you see a whole bunch of Imperials or Fords that are hard that that they're just going to kick your butt all over the track. Do you have that feel sometimes?
Well, I've had that feel more times prior to Fawcett shows. Fawcett's rules allowed you to build a very competitive new style Ford. They are now at least letting you compete with an Imperial with reasonable rules now, with a plate here or kickers, things like that to even up the field. If you can do that type of thing and everybody knows it up front, you don't have to push the envelope. One of the things, there's been I can think of one major car that I pushed the gray area past the gray area in my career. No doubt about it. But the rest, I've really been known for the rules. People are going to say because you win or do this. Winning is more about your driving style, getting some luck, having some numbers than anything. I don't care. Ask anybody that's won. But you got to have those things.
Right.
You got to have some luck, your driving style, and then hopefully the numbers were on your side at one point in time. It's not so much about cheating. But I've been to many derbies where I've followed the rules and I'm like, this is ridiculous. And a promoter is pressured because if car count. So they let guys in, or they say, hey, cut this or that. Well, the old saying is, they'll cheat on 10 things. You may have had them cut 3. There's still 7 ahead of the next guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what's happened at a lot of shows, which has scared some people off. To your point, your brother or anyone doesn't want to show up underbuilt, especially to a pro mod show. So some people go overboard and figure, well, heck, I'll just cut. I could name guys that show up late all the time to inspection. They push the envelope left to right. Things are in a hurry. They make them cut a few things here and there. It makes it look good, and they get in, right? That's just derbying. Some people get in sometimes with things. Some people don't. If you're in the show and you get in, I got to respect the inspectors. I got to respect the promoter, and it is what it is. Sometimes it's just not your day.
Right.
It's just the way it is. Otherwise, you'd lose the whole integrity of the whole thing. Pointing fingers.
Right. I've been to many shows that I'm not sure. I'm not going to name the promoter because I don't feel the need to, because I'm not, and they don't, and I'll just say they don't do shows around here anymore. But I remember I went to this derby. It was actually at Tippecanoe, and they allowed 2 cars. They came in, and I still remember the inspectors. And
Was one of them a Cadillac from down here?
I'm not sure. I can't really remember. I don't think so.
It was a T&E show back in the day.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to say. I didn't want to say.
I'll say it for you, Joel. Don't worry. T&E ran Johnson County forever. God bless T&E. I've won with T&E. I appreciate what they've done in England motorsports with King of Derbies for the state of Indiana.
Right.
They ran into a lot of the same things, so it's not bashed them. They did a fantastic job for a long time. It's just that's part of the sport. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you had some stuff going on up there.
Yeah, they were good. They were doing derbies here for a while, and they just got to the point each year they would kind of push the limit. And I still remember, and I definitely won't name the driver, but because I now said the promoter, or I mentioned the promoter, but there was 2 drivers. They came in on their trailers, and I mean within 5 seconds, the promoter and the inspectors just looked underneath their car real quick, gave them a flag, and they unloaded their vehicles, and they were in. And they went against my brother. They went against Joe Williams and his family. They went against a lot of people, and they didn't win it, but they came dang close. I think one of them finished 3rd, and I think the other one finished like 5th. And there was like maybe it was one-shot deal. It was for the mods, and there was maybe like 12 cars. But it was just the fact that they came in within. I mean, the show was getting ready to start like in 5 minutes, and they pulled in. They paid their fee. They inspected the car for like 5 seconds, and then they were in. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And then I think the next year, they had, and this is serious. Next year they had their show for the fair, and no cars showed up. Nobody. There was one mini that came, one mini car, and that was it. No one came, and after that, the fair board said, "See ya." And that's when John Fawcett stepped in, and then he's been doing it since.
Do you remember when I got my back end of a turtled wagon caught up there? You may have not known me up there, but I should have had a first win. It was down to 3. It was actually Jeff French, my buddy, me in a turtled wagon, and I forget who won. He was running an alcohol motor up there. I think he helps Fawcett actually. Actually, he wasn't the one who won. He was in a blue Impala, but very nice guy. But I remember he stalled my full track, tried his driver's side front fender, and at the last minute he pulled up, and I skidded probably about 12 feet, but it was horrible. I wedged my back end right inside of his driver's window, and everybody thought it was on purpose, which I would absolutely never do.
Right.
I got black flagged for that hit, which, rightfully so. It didn't look good to the crowd, but we shook hands and talked later. But that was one of those derbies that the way I was running in that car, that would have been, the blind man probably could have got that race to first. But that was my first experience with the teenie in Lafayette. Now that you bring it up, you're bringing back memories, man.
Yeah. Like I said, they
I love that track, though. It's narrow, but it's long. And if you remember, I flew over it one time, right, a couple years ago with Joe Williams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in my Imperial, and, you know, that was the first time he allowed Imperials, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
First time Foster allowed Imperials, and you couldn't weld anything on the Imperial. Couldn't weld the trunk. No hump plates, nothing like that. And Joe Williams had a Galaxy that was, you know, wedged, extremely wedged, probably about 13, 14 inches off the ground. We caught each other mid-track, and I thought, oh, no biggie, we're going to hit each other a little bit. But when he hit me, he picked up my back wheels off the ground. And when Joe realized that, he did what he needed to do, was try to get rid of me. He gunned it, took me halfway down the track. You can search YouTube for Flying Imperial. I'm sure many people saw it, but he took me over the 3.5-foot concrete box. I went straight into him because I didn't have any front brakes. I just had a driveline brake. So as soon as he lifted my drive wheels off, I couldn't gun it and steer out of it, and I could not brake. It was too late to really turn because I didn't want to just demolish my whole steering, hitting my, not hitting it square. So I flew over it. In fact, I dented his roof sign. I was so high, knocked up on his car, my back bumper was hitting his roof sign. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I caught on video, of course. What sucks is I cannot find it on my file because when I filmed that show, I made copies for everybody because everybody wanted that show because it was a good show. It was. But everybody just wanted the DVD because they wanted to see the clip of you getting flying over the wall. And I lost the file here about a year ago, and I cannot. I've looked for it everywhere. I cannot find it.
It's on YouTube.
Is
you
it on?
Find it still. If you search enough, it's still on YouTube. Yeah.
I wonder if it's my clip that I had. Because I posted that.
It probably is. It probably is, and we're very thankful. That we have somebody in the local area like you. Your videos are fantastic. The music you tie it to. I got a 13-year-old girl that likes country music, and I know your highlights of some of your derbies. You play some country to it, and she really enjoys those. So we appreciate all the work you do for that to give back to the drivers and fans.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, that's why I kind of got into it. I wanted to get into derbying myself because my brother was in it, and I just never did. So I thought, let me do this. Let me do this filming because I tried it in 2010, and some people liked it. They kind of liked what I was doing, and no one was filming around here. I mean, you got people everywhere around the Midwest filming derbies, but no one around here. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start doing this. And we'll see how it takes off. And then in 2011 is when I kind of established it, and ever since then, I just try to increase each year, doing more derbies and trying new things, getting GoPro cameras inside cars. I would like to get another person if I can to try to film in a different area. So I have these thoughts, but I appreciate the feedback because that's what everybody just tells me, that I do a fabulous job. And what I do every year is I try to do a better job. I try to up myself every year. So hopefully 2015 will be a good year for me, and I plan on doing a lot of shows in this upcoming year.
But I'm still depressed because the one show that you missed
yeah.
is that fantastic show
in
Noblesville a few years ago when me and my brother got first and second. I mean, Jeremy Hamilton, Larry Edison, Billy Rose. You had Buchanan from Ohio over there in his 03. Hardest Ford I've ever hit. Hardest. I'm in my Imperial. Doesn't matter if I went back to back this time or front to front.
Yeah, that was definitely a good show.
That was a hell of a car. He's a good driver over there in Ohio. I knew the only way I'm going to beat him is if I beat the steering off of him and get him over to a wall, and that's the only way because that car was going to be hard to destroy.
Yeah.
But yes, I need that darn video. So if anyone has that Noblesville Derby, please contact Joel or myself. DM me.
I wish I was there to film it. That was when I was working a third shift summer job, and I couldn't make it. And of course, everybody told me about it. It was a good show, and I was like, great. Of course, that won. And I just wish I made it because everybody I talked to, even my brother said it was the best show they've seen. So, oh well. Hopefully this.
Well, and you know, we all gave a show there. We all hit each other. You know, we're friends. We shake hands afterwards, and I didn't let my brother off the hook. We're doing donuts, chasing each other, both in full frame Imperials, and the last shot was a head-to-head shot. And granted, remember, he had my guard motor actually in there, and I had my copper top in my Imperial, and I'm hitting him on the right corner of his pointy, and the moment I took it up to the roof of his car, and it picked his car off the ground and dropped. That was the only time that guard motor stalled that whole time. Only time. And my brother didn't want to mess, up, and his frame was almost laying on the ground by his feet at that point because I had it so wedged up. And it was a heck of a hit at the end, and it was cool. And, that was my brother's best finish, the second. And, we had a hell of a weekend. My dad was there, my wife, family. It was an emotional time just to, my brother didn't get the Derby a lot, but to finish first and second was really cool. And my cousin was running as well in that show, so it was a nice family affair.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Too bad they don't run Noblesville anymore, but maybe someday.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was talking to Sean last week, and he said he wants to run it because it's his hometown show, but he said he hasn't heard anything, but he says if they're running this year, he's definitely going to be running that. Of course, last year there was a promoter he was supposed to put it on, but he never did, he had the rules and everything, and all of a sudden just canceled. So I'm not sure if there's any promoter that's going to be filming that show, or not filming, promoting that show.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody of late. It's just so hard. There's so many shows every weekend, and it's just difficult.
Right.
That's the problem. But that's a nice track. I really like Lafayette's track. I mean, Johnson County is my nice home show. It's a nice track. I'd say Lafayette for sure. Morgantown, Martinsville, Indiana. Because that track's just huge. Those are two of my favorite tracks. Lafayette's just cool because it's so damn long. It's a damn drag strip.
Right. So I talked about on the phone with you when we were figuring out what questions we want to talk about, and I asked this question to you about, did you hear about John Fawcett changing the bumper height rule? They're actually going to have to at least be 16 inches high, and you said, oh, that's a Jason Jarboe rule change, and which I didn't know. Do you kind of want to go in detail about that? I guess it was with the factor with the state fair of last year.
Yeah. So, if anybody's been around the Fawcett shows or seen the Imperials, my cousin and I have been running, as soon as he allowed you to weld the trunks of Imperials, I said, well, I'm going to do it like the subframe Imperials or Fords. So, I created, basically a wedge trunk. Like I said, I probably put 20 hours in the trunk. There's no added metal. All there is seams welded, folded over and folded over. When you fold things over, it's to itself multiple times. And then I didn't even have 1/4 inch strapping. I had 1/8 inch. Makes a real tight, shell, better than what you would with a Ford being wedged, just because it's thicker metal to begin with. So it was very hard. The other thing is, my cousin and I, we got to a point that we set the cars extremely low. High in the front, low in the back. Well, Fawcett rules enabled you to do that because there was no front or back bumper height rule. So for years, new style Fords look like what? They're ready to ramp, right? High in the front, low in the back. So I said, well, hell, why don't I do this with Imperial? And I was doing it without pitching the frame. The thought that I have, moving forward on, pitching a full framer. But I don't know how much advantage when you look at the frame that you gain, or if it's even necessary, but it's a thought. But anyway, I want to get to the point where I set it high in the front and low in the back. And I'll be honest, my Imperial that's been running the last year was nearly 26 inches off the bottom of the front bumper, and it was about 11 inches the bottom of the back. My cousin's was very similar, okay? Mm-hmm. People thought it was a monster truck. It was sitting so high in the front. It's actually too high in the front. I would never do it that high again. It's too high. Right. Because, I'm open for shots as well on my lower A arms, control arms, steering, all that stuff. So, although Imperial steering's nice because it's behind the engine cradle, which is nice. Unlike Ford, it's out in front, right? Mm-hmm. So I call it the Jarboe rule because couple things. The Fawcett's changed his rules. He's got a bumper height. I believe it's 16 inches in 2015. People complained a lot after that state fair, a little bit after the Frankfurt Derby, especially at the state fair, because my cousin and I were, basically going under the front of Fords, and we were just taking out their tie rods and their steering. So, obviously when you get a, Ford where they are a wounded animal and can't steer, you've already got a leg up on any of your competition if you can't steer. My thought is Fords have been doing it forever. How many times you see a Ford rear end scoop somebody up from, the front, right? And they're sitting their front ends high in the front. I just did it with an Imperial, and I maximized to his rules, and it did create a lot of damage, especially at that state fair with some of those guys steering, but that's kind of the name of the game. You're trying to, take out the guys that you're against.
Right.
But the Fawcett decided to do a rule change. That's fine. Everybody will measure. We'll do 16 inches. I don't care. It just doesn't, to me, what's the matter? Fords have been dragging in the rear, and, just like wagons, they turn back the clock. They're trying to drag the rear of the wagons in the ground, so it's not hitting on the frame. And then everybody thought those cars were overbuilt in the back end because they weren't bended. Clearly go back to the 43, 45-minute state fair that me and my cousin got first, second, and you'll see me at one time hit Stillo, the dad, and it really knocked up. With a hard hit, I'm glad everything was okay with him. Would never want to see anyone hurt. He's a great derbier. He's won many times. His son's, going to be a star in the sport as well. He did a hell of a job at Derby. But my back end bent like you would normally have. The thing is, when you set anything low, and everybody else is riding over you, it's not hitting on the frame, so it's less chance for it to bend. It's not that it's loaded or has something in it. It's just the way you build it mechanically. Physics is physics, and if somebody's riding over you, it's not feeling the brunt of the load. But when I kept hitting it against stuff, eventually it's going to go, and it did go. So, what do I think? So bumper heights rule, they changed that. That's fine. We'll deal with it. Everybody sticks to the rules. We'll stick to the rules. And then the fenders. So you got to keep your fenders straight too. So that's not just an Imperial rule. That's going to be a Ford rule. You can't wedge them over like that. So I can't fold over my rear quarters. Mm-hmm. They got to be, same with the Ford. A new stock Ford, they'll have to be straight up and down. And it's a pain in the ass for John's inspectors himself to look in those trunks when they're smashed so far down. So he's giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, but he doesn't want to, have to search as somebody loaded something in their trunk and put something that shouldn't be there. So I get it. It's a pain to inspect a Pro Mod. That's fine. We'll do it. Everybody, as long as everybody does it the same, then no one should be complaining. But, those two rules will be a change, and there's no doubt we had a little bit of something to do with that. But, NASCAR changes rules all the time, too, and people have to abide by them. So right. We will as well.
Well, I respect on what you're saying, because you know what? When I saw it, I'll be honest with you, I was thinking, are they supposed to even be doing that? And I'm thinking, you know what? It's part of derbying, and what you guys did. Who cares? We all make mistakes, and we learn from them. And really, I wouldn't say you guys made a mistake. You guys were just experiencing something, and some people are not liking it, and they're going to voice their opinion. And so, John Fawcett's making those rule changes, and let's so be it, and let's just move on.
Good, because now I was going to build it the same way, obviously. But now it's saved me some time, because I'm telling you, talk about killing with the sledgehammer. I mean, it was
right.
It was knock a few inches over weld, knock a few inches over and weld. I remember doing that. And it's about killed me at my age anymore. I need some 20-year-old kid hitting on my truck. But so yeah, I don't mind. It's funny that state fair. This is one of the things I think we chatted about, but a lot of people don't know. It was about 43, 45 minutes. I think that featured for that Pro Mod. And about halfway in, Joel, I started spitting training fluid out of my training cooler. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to say sabotage, because it wasn't leaking at least for the first 10 or 15 minutes. but something must have flew in, a rock or something from the track, and hit one of my fins, and it was pissing out the top of the training cooler all the way to the back seat. Just as much as you can. I probably had 14, 15 quarts in that system.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, man, I might be able to lose about 5 quarts, 6 maybe, before I really feel something. So I had to baby that darn thing for the whole rest of the half. When I really wanted to get on it, put on a show, I took my shots very strategic, but it's not what I wanted to do that day. And most certainly when it got down to Larry, who's a very stand-up guy, I was starting to lose my steering a little at the end, and I was going for his left front fender, and I wedged over. I got hit a little portion of his driver's door, but he was a stand-up guy, and I called me out for it. So kudos to Larry Edison and the RMR crew, stand-up guys for sure. But and then it came down to me and my cousin. But I was limping around. My cousin didn't even know it. He's just thinking he's just going at Derbian, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost a sitting duck, because at that point I am going where I'm revving more than I'm going, if you know what I mean. So I babied it a little bit more, but he got a shot on my front end again with his low back end that messed up my lower control arm there, my lower A arm, my wheel end bent it back a little bit, jammed it. So my steering was messed up a little bit from the same build that we did. I mean, it just is what it is. That's Derbian, but we wanted to put on a good show. But unfortunately, my training didn't allow that. The audience wouldn't know that, but it stunk because I was ready to put it on.
Right. And that's another thing, like you said, for instance, if I had my GoPro camera in your car, we could pick that up and see it. No one can, the crowd can't sense on what's going on in your car. You could be, like you said, losing transmission fluid, having something going wrong, and you don't know that. I mean, the crowd can't sense that, and they're booing at you because you might be cheating or you're doing this or you're doing that. They don't know until you're voicing your opinion. You're telling what happened. And so yeah, I respect you and your cousin fully. That show was awesome. I like I said, when I talked to you when we were talking over the phone here a couple of days ago, I went back and I watched the whole thing over and over again because it was a good show. It was absolutely, I liked it because I never got to actually see it because I didn't go to it, but I enjoyed watching it. You guys definitely turned it up several times, and that's what I like seeing. You guys always would hit, and you continued to hit, and just showing who you guys are, and you definitely put a show on for the fans.
There were some hard cars. I mean, Critter, Chris Smith, he really tried making a great shot. Unfortunately, he rolled up on the wheel side of somebody and flipped himself on the lid. He would have been really tough in that car.
Oh yeah.
That did not happen. He was ready to turn it up. It was a great show. Good to see a lot of guys out there that haven't ran for a while, and some guys from up north that came down as well.
The rumor has it there's going to be, actually, I think we talked about this, but I also heard it from a few other drivers that for the state fair there might be some Ohio drivers, some Illinois drivers coming to the state fair, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana's got some excellent builders, no doubt about it, with Ford. Ohio's probably, obviously, I would say, they've been running new styles for a while. There's been a lot of other type of builds that come out of there that I think people have learned on here. So there's some great builders in Indiana with Fords, but they've also been leafing Fords. Illinois has been leafing Fords, new style Fords as well. So when Fawcett's new leaf spring rule, there's no doubt Ohio is ahead of the game in doing that. We'll bring some guys over. I mean, it pays. Fawcett's shows are great. It gets back to the drivers. They pay deep. He always pays. The money's always there. But 2,000 first, 1,000 per second, allowing you to build a Ford with a couple of plates, kickers, and leaf springs. If you're a builder, that's a builder's build. Bring it on. I mean, so there's no imperial domination going on when you start going against a bunch of leaf Fords out there.
Right. So where do you see yourself in 5 years in Derbian?
Ooh, 5 years. You're really jumping up. I my son will be starting college in less than 4 years. He's a freshman in high school. So I'd say I'll probably continue at the pace, Joel, I'm going, running a few derbies a year. I've probably got a good 3 more years in me. I don't know if I have 5. 5 puts me at 48. It's possible that will be the case. But I would say that, 5 might be pushing it to the far end. It'd be more probably, I'm looking at 3 or 4 right now. And then, if I see myself retire in, 4 years or so, I'd like to become a promoter at a large show. I'm not saying where I need to promote a lot, but I'd like to invest back into the drivers. My knowledge, get a good inspection crew, get some serious money out there. There's a couple venues in central Indiana, just on the south side, that would really support, a 1 or 2 day derby that hasn't been here. I think you got to lose on it maybe the first year to get it out there. So, if I can get the backers, the sponsors, I'd like to do that in the next, 5 years, get something like that going. I'm not a guy that needs to promote 5, 6, 10, 15 shows, but can I get back, something that's good for a nice derby that needs to happen in Indiana? I mean, if you think about it, we don't have a Metal Mayhem here. We don't have a Bachelor Cast Turn Back the Clock here. Why not? Mm-hmm. Indiana's got a lot of derbiers from, south of the border in Kentucky. They've got their big derby down there. Ohio's got their big derby. Illinois' got their big derby. Where's Indiana's big derby?
Right.
It's not here. So it can be here, and you've got, even Michigan. These 4 or 5 states around here, you get the right derby, you could have a heck of a draw.
I kind of thought about.
So, but that's where I see myself.
Okay, I kind of thought about this myself, and I just thought about this, and I was gonna talk to this about to a few people. What would you think of having a team show with 4 best drivers from Indiana, 4 best drivers from Illinois, and then just say the Midwest. So you got Illinois, Michigan, Kentucky, Ohio, and for instance, they just go to the state fairgrounds in Indianapolis, and they battle it out, like Indiana versus Ohio, and then Michigan versus Kentucky or whatever. I mean, you think that would be a really good turnout? I mean, would a lot of people come to see that?
See, what I would build into that is I would add that on to the show. So if you're having a big 1 or 2 day show, I would make that a feature of the show. Mm-hmm. And then I would have, let's say you have a turn back the clock type heat, an old iron heat, right? Those guys do a fantastic job over in Ohio. I mean, you're going 300 and something cars. You don't just do that overnight to draw that type of fans and driver support. I think the show would need to have a little bit more than just, 16 cars, maybe 4 states, 5 states of 4. At least that first year, until you could get it going on. Your problem is going to be everyone arguing about who's the best driver.
Yeah.
So top 4 in every state, because there's way more than top 4, top drivers in every state. There's no doubt about that. So you'd have to get a short list for every state, and then you would have to say, all right, who's actually available? Who actually wants to be teammates with this guy? Because you could have 2 top drivers in a state, but they hate each other. Are they willing to put that aside for the pride of their state?
Right.
I think it could work. I think it's a great idea. I think it brings me up, when I think about shows that I have not derbied yet.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking a team show. I went to a big show, Turn Back the Clock, last year. I ran in a spotless 74 Buick wagon. I think it had a nickel-sized hole in the passenger side floorboard. I mean, the whole spare tire area was in it, you name it. I had 22 cars in my heat. There's like 18 GM wagons, 2 Caddies, and 2 Galaxies. We had the longest heat. It was Heat 3 last year, Turn Back the Clock. You can YouTube it. I'm in a black car, number 9, Battle Axe, Iron Glider at the top. Great time. Great drivers, great builders. I mean, everyone's got the best equipment. Everyone's won. I enjoyed it. I needed more friends and a little more luck. But I enjoyed the experience. It was a great weekend. So that's a show that I got off, and I said, hey, that's on my bucket list. I did it. Metal Mayhem's running $20,000 stock there. That would have been a great wagon to run at that. You see how the wagon prices are going up. But, Metal Mayhem is still something to run a DI show on my list. And when you talk about that, you brought up a team show. So I have never ran in a team show, and I was watching, what was it, Blizzard Bash recently?
Yeah, this past November.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and heck of a show. And I'm just thinking, yeah, I need to do a team show. I need the green flag to drop, and it's 4 of us guys against 4 of us, guys or gals, however, and, have at it. That's what I want to do. So Spring Explosion, maybe before I hang it up, I can get a good team together and go over there. I can think of some guys I'd like to have in my team, right now that are great builders, drivers, have the equipment. So I want to do a team show before I hang it up. So you bring it up. I think that's something that we could definitely do on a large scale. I think it's a good idea. The promoter, Rouse Promotions, did one. And he did it in Muncie, a couple times. And it had some decent turnout. He just couldn't get it off the ground like he wanted. I'm not sure what the deal is. Needed to probably get a little more, pay. The person needed to probably be a little bit bigger. Need consistent rules from year to year. Just never got off the ground. It didn't get the support that he needed. But I think we could do something like that. I really do. I think that's a good idea.
So you'd be okay running like an 03 Ford or whatever? You'd be okay running like a bubble style Ford?
Yeah, I don't care what it is. I'd like to do it. I'd probably build a 98 to 02 Ford.
Okay.
To be honest with you. My cousins built an 04, 03 Ford that he built. And they're fine. They got their weak points depending on what the rules are. They seem to be a lot of work to me than just how you could build a 98 to 02.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of,
go get some old iron out there and be the old iron car in the team.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You could do that. Speaking of old iron vehicles, your cousin Jeff, he ran a Cadillac at the spring show over in the state fairgrounds here for the Good Guys last May or June? Was it?
Yeah, so he went to the Good Guys show.
Yeah.
What you're talking about? Yeah, so that car, the Cadillac.
Yeah, what happened to it?
74 two-door Cadillac.
Mm-hmm.
74, yeah. He still got it. Actually, that was a turn back the clock build, and he took it over there. Actually, I towed it. He went the day before, and I actually towed it over with my wagon the next day, the Saturday, that morning. And he had the worst problems with the brakes on that car, and they weren't good enough for the inspection crew to safely let him in. So we actually even bought another brake setup, dealt with it. We could never get that darn thing in the last minute to work like we wanted it to. It was a weird thing, but it's probably for the better. Just the way that caddy was built for that show, that he saved it. So he's got it. He's gonna fix it. It bet funny on him at that Good Guys, so he's still got it. And he'll run it again.
Okay.
Actually, I look for him to probably come out sometime in the fall, or not the fall, but late spring to try to run that again.
So what's in store for you in 2015?
Well, like I said, I got about 3 or 4 years left. So the Iron Gladiator for 2015. Let's see, what can I do? Well, I continue to plan to run Imperials. I still need to finish off my last year Imperial. Still got another life in it. Heck, I don't know. I may even let my dad run it. Who knows? Or let him run something. I think I'll get him in a gut and go this year. Let's see, how old is he? He's 67. 67, he hasn't driven forever. I need to get him back under it. Select it first. Get him in a gut and go before I put him in a pro mod car. He's really taking the hits.
Yeah.
So I finished stripping another 65 Imperial, so I'm not sure, where I may run that this year or what the deal is. Just depends. I think I'll build. I started on a Ford, believe it or not. So I'll probably run another 90s Crown Vic sometime this year. And I look to go back to faucet shows. So you probably see the Punishers back up in Frankfurt maybe in May, and possibly Lafayette in July. I'd like to get back to Morgan County and Martinsville with Greg Zupancic as the promoter. In August, State Fair in August is still my plan. Just August, late August, just depends on what you have left.
Right.
Or actually, at that point, it may be a fresh car with a couple leaves. So that's kind of the plan. Faucet shows, Morgan County, State Fair, but 2 or 3 faucet shows. I really like giving back to supporting somebody that's brought Imperials back. I know Larry Edison and Jeremy Hamilton feel the same way. I mean, they love the subframers, so it's been nice fun for them as well.
Right.
They've got a few.
Yeah.
Larry wants to retire. Now he's got his son doing well, and
yeah,
he wanted to go stock, but he can't get out of the pro mods because he's having too much fun with the subframes to get out, I think.
Yeah. Last year he said he was gonna do a farewell tour. And now I saw on Facebook here a couple of days ago he's got 2 vehicles. He bought 2 vehicles. I think they're Mopars. They're not Imperials. They're Mopars.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you heard about that or not.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about those Mopars, you can get a Newport or something and just keep putting their good Imperial subs in them.
Right.
Basically, you got the same darn thing, same car, just a little different body.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's if you have a nice straight sub, you might as well just move it from car to car. And, I don't blame him. Why turn around if you can just drive forward? But yeah, I'd say we talked about my winning earlier, and I kind of got that. I mean, there's a couple places I still want to win. Morgan County is one of those I'd like to get down there and real close. But I think you'll see more, depending on the car and the situation, be more mad dogging it than going for the win. So hopefully I can get back a little added flair, bigger hits for the crowd in 2015. So you can probably look for more of that out of me in 2015 from the Iron Gladiator here. Just to get that out of my system in the last 2 or 3 years. I ran like that a lot, and then I said, well, let me settle down, work on my driving skills a little bit, make my hits a little more strategic because I wanted to get that first win, and then fortunately some other wins followed after that. But now that I know I'm kind of getting close to that tail end, let's kick it up a notch, get back to the fans a little more, and try to put on some. If the equipment will hold up, put on some good hits when I can.
How'd you get the name Iron Gladiator?
The craziest thing, so weed crash is just nuts. So, God, I can't remember when I got on the weed crash, but probably about 10, 12 years ago when I got back into it with my buddy Jeff French, and I got to that site and I said, "Wow, this is an unbelievable site." So you had to pick a name, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, all right, let me think about this. So I picked a few, and they were kind of used, and then I thought, wait a minute, I really like the Derby Old Iron. When you think about a Derby, you're really a gladiator out there in the ring, trying to be the last one standing. So I thought, Iron Gladiator would be cool. I'm kind of derbying the Old Iron, and I'm that gladiator out there with a bunch of other gladiators trying to be the last person standing. So I put them together, and I've been ever since known as the Iron Gladiator.
So, we've been talking for over an hour now, and I think that's gonna do it. I mean, we hit a lot of points, and talked a lot about certain different topics. Is there any thank yous you want to say to anybody?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to all the drivers in Indiana that keep it up, keep this great sport up, have the sportsmanship, leave it all on the track, shake hands afterwards, come out, build you something, regardless of being a mini car, stock car, or, pro mod. Keep with it. We can keep the sport alive definitely for a few more years. I want to thank, big sponsor for me would be my parents. So Jim and Rainey Jarboe, can't thank them enough. My brother, I wish him well. He was a big help as well when he was here, and Jim Jarboe Jr., and then my cousin Jeff Jarboe, Punishers, number 122. I give him a shout out. My buddy Chris Chumley, number 21, and his brother Chad Chumley. So we've all kind of helped each other out, and it's been a good time. And I appreciate you, Joel, as well. As I started off, I think this is a great thing to have Derby Junkie podcast to represent obviously our state, but in the Midwest. I think this is something that's going to grow. I think people should listen out, and you can at least hear a different side from drivers and promoters that you'll have on down the line, and gives a nice inside scoop, and it'll just build from there. So, sure, I'm leaving a lot of guys out, but you know who you are. I appreciate anybody that's helped me, along the lines. I mentioned Jeff French and his dad, Bill French. They were a big help getting me back into it to where I am today. So, appreciate it, Joel, for having me on, and good luck at your next podcast as well.
Well, I appreciate it, Jason, and we'll probably catch up in the pits sometime this season because you're naming a whole bunch of shows that you're going to be at, and I'll be there. I'll be at least one of them, so hopefully we can catch up, and maybe I'll get a GoPro in your car, and we can see some good action from you since you said you're going to go balls out this season, so hopefully you won't disappoint me. But, again, thanks for coming on, and we appreciate it, taking the time out of your schedule, and yeah, we'll just leave it there, and so I'll see you later, man.
See you, Joel. Take care, buddy.
All right, take care. See ya. So we did about an hour and a half almost of talk with Jason. It was a good show. We hit a lot of good topics. So hey, hope everybody enjoyed that. We talked about several things, or numerous things, and we're just gonna leave it as that. And next week we'll have a week off from the podcast. I won't be on. And then the following week, we'll have Kyle Chrisman on. That'll be February 19th. And we'll catch up with him and talk about his career, talk about what's in store for him for 2015. He runs a lot of compacts, so we'll see what he's going to be doing and what kind of cars he's going to be running and what shows he's going to be at in 2015. But before I go, a couple events that I want to talk about, because since Jason was an Imperial guy, he runs Imperials. Maybe there might be people listening out there that want to do a Imperial show maybe in the future. John Fawcett is one to get a hold of. And, of course, Jason talked about another promoter down in his area. I think he's going to be doing Johnson County, around that area. Of course, I didn't catch his name, but he said it numerous times on this podcast. So if you can get hold of Jason, or even hold the guy that he mentioned, and you want to do an Imperial show, talk to him or talk to John Fawcett. But anyways, John Fawcett has 5 shows that he's gonna be doing, possibly maybe 6 or 7. I've been hearing rumors that he might be doing possibly a fall show at Clinton County, but it just depends on how he does the spring and the 2 county fall shows, or not fall shows, fair shows in Clinton County. So he might be having 4 shows at Clinton County Fairgrounds in Frankfort, Indiana. But his schedule looks like this, and then these are all, they allow Imperials to run the modifieds. So his spring show kicks off May 30th at the Clinton County Fairgrounds in Frankfort, Indiana. That's on a Saturday. Start time, I cannot find that. I think that's like 6 p.m. And then he's got 2 Clinton County shows. Of course, they're the fair shows, July 11th and July 17th. That's a Saturday and Friday show. 6 p.m. on Sunday, or 6 p.m. Saturday, 7 p.m. Friday. And then he goes to Tippecanoe County, July 25th. It's on a Saturday at 6 p.m. It's in Lafayette, Indiana. And then he ends it in Marion County, August 16th at the State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis, Indiana. That's a Sunday. So that's, it's 5 shows right there. Possibly he could have more. As of right now, that's the shows that I know he's doing. They allow Imperials in the modifieds. Sounds like there's going to be a lot of Imperials this year that'll be coming to one of those shows. I know you might see, I would say 5 to 10 Imperials maybe at the Clinton County Spring Show May 30th. There might be more. Who knows? We'll have to wait and find out. If you need any questions, you can always contact John Fawcett on We Crash or on Facebook. He's got his own Facebook if you want to contact him off there if you're friends with him. But he can get a hold of him easily. He'll get back with you if you got any questions pretty quick. But yeah, those are his 5 shows that he's running. So him, or like I said, Jason Jarboe, who mentioned. I wish I remember the guy's name that he mentioned, but looks like there's going to be more Imperial shows around here now, which is good. I think there's, like Jason said, there's Imperials out there. A lot of people have capped them, and they're just waiting to run them. Even with the wagons. With trying to find old iron, yes, it's hard. I'll agree. It's hard, but it's not that they're all gone. They're still here. They're hard to find because they're put away. They're put away in barns or garages that people want to run, or they might want to restore it and make it a classic car or whatever. So they're out there. It's just if you can find the right people that you can buy it off of. A lot of people don't want to sell them, especially the nice ones that have hardly any rust. But anyways, here coming up in 2 weeks, we'll have Kyle Chrisman on, and it'll be February 19th. We'll have him on, and we can talk about his career and what's in store for him for 2015. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Derby Junkie podcast. Episode number 7. It's in the books. And we'll be back here in 2 weeks for episode number 8. Until then, guys, take care. We'll see you later. Hey guys, Joel Vansel here. Thank you again for listening to my podcast. I appreciate all of the support. If you haven't already liked my page, please do so on facebook.com, search Vansel Productions. You can keep up with all my information and podcasts that I post. Again, thank you for listening.